Tell us about the book that you have coming out.
Well, it's geared towards young adult audience, and it's historical fiction. It's set in the 1300s, Timbuktu, around the peak of Timbuktu, and it's pretty much about a family that becomes separated because of an internal warfare that happens. And there's all these like trials and tribulations that they have to go through, and they all kind of wound up in the grand city of gold, which is Timbuktu.
Wow.
So it's pretty much about their struggles that they go through, and they're pretty much young adults themselves, so like teens, range from 14 to 18 to 21 in age. So young adults and teens. So that's pretty much what it's about in a nutshell. And within this whole story, one of the characters who becomes kind of like the heroine figure, along with two of her other sisters, they come upon this historical treasure that is pretty much one of the pillars of Timbuktu.
Wow. So what inspired you to write this book?
Well, a number of things. One of the main things that inspired me was to probably have a story for African Americans and a range of different, minority audiences, children, and pretty much for them to have a story that they can go to and learn more about the African history, the quote roots of the motherland, and reconnecting with those golden days and be informed of African history in itself prior to the stories where we've heard about, like certain things of oppression or the after struggle. So just pretty much giving more so of a historical story and context for us to learn more about our historical roots. There's various different stories that talk about Celtics or ancient myths, and I probably wanted to see more of a story that connected back to the ancient civilizations of African empires.
Okay, to give some, give our new generation some history of that too. Hello?
Hello?
Yes, I'm still here.
Oh, okay. So, is that, a part of giving history back to the community when they read this book, they can learn a little about, what was going on back then too?
Right. So like, Timbuktu was one of the long-ranging empires with the Mali Empire. So it's giving a little bit of cultural context in terms of the form of government, because there was a form of government. Back then, there was also one of peak of universities, and it was a place where scholars would go to learn and travel. There was a huge trade system that happened as well between the salts and the gold trade, and just kind of educating the younger audience that there was some elite kind of civilization that did exist prior to a lot of the ones that you probably hear about in terms of Roman Empire, some Celtic stories or kingdoms, British empires. And one of the people back in Timbuktu, Mansa Musa, who was a very rich man back in his time. So it's kind of just giving a little bit of insight into the cultural, economic, and government form. There was a system, a military system that happened in Timbuktu. There was an educational system in terms of the universities. People from around that area and students of the Sahara and Northern Africa would come there to learn. Wow. So it's giving just a little bit of snippet of the educational and cultural richness in terms of the civilization that existed back then. And the story kind of centers around this family, particularly three sisters, that become separated. And with these trials and tribulations, they encounter these other characters, and they all meet at Timbuktu. And in Timbuktu, they reunite and with different people, they figure out certain things that happened, and it kind of all ties back into this central puzzle piece that one of them encounters while in the city, and realizes that there's a cultural, historical essence that's already embedded in each of them.
Okay.
And with this, they have a sense of strength through meeting different people. And it's kind of like that in a nutshell.
Wow.
Okay.
That's amazing.
So what kind of headspace did you have to put yourself in on a daily basis or every day as you were writing snippets of this book?
So I kind of pretty much retreated and just started writing. I started kind of writing this 2 years ago and came up with like a draft manuscript around April of 2015.
Okay.
And I would kind of do it on my downtime after work in the evening and just start formulating the story. And in the process of writing this story, I started to do research and came across Google Scholars. They have various different articles. I also encountered another audio transcript from a speaker professor from University of Maryland. Her name is Nubia Kai, and just kind of listened to her backstory. She wrote kind of a collection, a book pertaining to the myths of Timbuktu and looking more into how Timbuktu came to rise.
Wow.
And how that there was this internal turmoil that happened with the family. There was one of the key founders was Sindiata Keita, and there's a whole mythological story that happens between him and how he was kind of bumped off from the throne. So I was kind of taking bits and pieces, looking into the history of Timbuktu in terms of its economic and government and military forms that it had, and also the mythological legends that came about from oral history, because usually in African culture, there's a lot of things that are handed down through oral tradition.
Okay.
So kind of in this process of writing, I was doing some research, listening to transcripts or looking at books that particularly speak of visitors that have gone to Timbuktu, and kind of gathering that cultural information and re-embedding it into the story itself in little snippets. So that way it becomes an educational tool as well, informing young readers of actual cultural, military, government forms that were there in Timbuktu itself.
Wow, amazing.
So will you be at the Authors Expo?
I will, yes. That's happening in October. I most certainly will.
Awesome.
I will have printed copies as well, and also plan on having it done as an ebook.
And what's the name of the book?
It is called The Key to the 8 Pillars of Timbuktu.
Okay.
Yeah.
And do you have some sort of website where we can get more information about how to purchase your book and other things like that?
Yes, so I do have a website. It is currently under construction, but it's live.
Okay.
So the web link is the 8, so it's pillars. So the 8 pillars, there's only one E.
Okay.
And again, it's under construction. So there's pretty much on the website just like a general book synopsis. The cover reveal is not happening yet, and pretty much just like a bio.
Okay.
The interesting about the book as well, I'm also a fan of comic books, so there are illustrations that are also included in the book.
Okay. That's
For
amazing.
the book, it's, my own illustrations included,
Okay.
the cover design as well, and as well as the literature.
So are you on social media, Facebook or Instagram?
I am on Instagram. I'll have those links also provided on my website. So
Awesome.
if people wanted to connect via Instagram, I will have, some updates and Facebook as well. So I'm on those 2 social media platforms.
Oh man, thank you so much for calling in.
Absolutely.
This sounds so amazing. I'm very impressed about the research that that you did about 10 by 2, and I think it's going to be very educational to people who read it. So I'm just so excited that you called in and and shared this wonderful news about your book, and congratulations on your journey.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for calling in.
Thank you so much for having me. It was a pleasure to share.
Yes, you're welcome. See you at the book expo.
All right.
Author expo. Have a good night. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You're welcome. That was awesome, guys. So yes, finally a real book. Yes,
Right,
Roger.
yeah.
It sounds very interesting. She did a lot of research. We just have to encourage our young folks to read stuff like that, other than in school.
And Netflix.
Yeah. Okay. So this concludes the first part of our talk show, Fancy Tea Talk Show. Yeah. So, okay, we'll be back after our break. Mwah.